Hey everybody watching this. The purpose of this video really is to just do a little bit of an FAQ about Dealpipe and also uh, just talk about it in general and talk about the strategies of finding businesses. Um, I think a lot of people, when they think about finding offline businesses, maybe they think offline businesses are better because you don't need to pay as much, or um, maybe you can find like an unsophisticated seller. And I think actually, in my experience, that's not really the case. Like, it's not hard for people to figure out how much their business is worth. I think the real advantage of not going through a marketplace is that you can find higher quality businesses. You can find businesses that aren't necessarily for sale yet, or where the founder hasn't spent the last sort of 6 to 12 months mentally checked out, and so you're getting a business in decline. I think I think those are really the main advantages. And so Nick and I started working together about a little over a year ago after Onfolio went public. I think you reached out maybe that week and were like, "Hey, I can help you find businesses." And I was kind of impressed with the results. Like, you found a ton of really good businesses really quickly, and um, they were higher quality than a lot of the things we'd been seeing on marketplaces or through our own efforts. And then in addition to that, the founders were a lot more, I think it was a lot more exploratory, because the way it works is you're kind of reaching out to someone saying, "Hey, are you interested in selling your business?" And a lot of them are like, "Sure, I'll hear what you got to say." Um, and that means you can approach it from a much more relationship based partnership almost. So we would get on a call with people, and it was just very much CEO to CEO. It wasn't transactional. It was, "Hey, we buy businesses, we like yours, we think we could make something happen, or what are you open to?" Things like that. Um, and then as I started sharing on social media or just in conferences, people started saying to me, "Well, do you have a guy, or like, do you have a process?" And it made me realize, there's probably like a business model here where um, we can really help other people find businesses the same way. And there's no kind of conflict of interest here, because the way Dealpipe works is we're not spamming the internet, getting a bunch of businesses and then passing on the ones we don't want and sending them on to other people. It's a lot more proprietary and targeted. So someone will say, "Hey, I'm looking for a services business in Utah." We'll go out and find a business for them. Or someone says, "I'm looking for a vertically integrated SaaS infrastructure business in this price range." Then we'll go out and find that for them. So there's no real issue there. But yeah, with that being said, I kind of wanted to introduce Nick to everybody. So maybe you can do a little bit about your background and how you sort of got into this space and became so good at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Tom. So I started this phase of my career with the private equity firm called ESW Capital that was focused on buying software companies. The team that I came in on basically built their proprietary search program over the course of about 3 years. Almost all email driven, so cold email to business owners. In that case, it was all in the software space. And just did a lot of volume there. We had the team increased and decreased in size through the years, but at peak we were sending thousands of emails a week to businesses looking to buy them. And so we kind of developed best practices and learned what worked and what didn't. Through that, I left there in 2020 and started an M&A advisory shop called Climb Advisors. And we work with sellers, but we also work with buyers to do that process, to find businesses and help guide that transaction process. And like, in the case of Onfolio, for example, where it's a sophisticated buyer, they have a lot of knowledge. They don't really need like advice consultation in that way, but to have a slightly more neutral third party, or to have somebody in the middle, just helps smooth the transaction a little bit. We can, it winds up being beneficial for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, I actually think one thing that I guess I found surprising working with you would be sometimes we're on a call with a potential seller, and you would message me on WhatsApp or something saying, something doesn't add up about this person's story, or I looked into what they were saying and I couldn't find any evidence of it or something. And so I realized, even though you make all your money from us buying a business and giving you a commission, you were still looking out for our interests, which makes sense because in the long term you want us to buy many businesses. But yeah, I was kind of surprised. So yeah, I did and still do appreciate not just that you can find businesses, but like you can sort of help perform due diligence on them. And yeah, so that's definitely important, especially with offline deals where maybe not all of the information is readily available. So there's there's a lot of data gathering that needs to take place as well. So yeah, I think that's pretty useful.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, go ahead.
So to your point about like the unsophisticated seller, that's kind of the flip side of that, right? Is that sometimes that data is harder to get from them, which is where it's not prepared. So there's the benefit of finding deals that are not marketed, but there's sometimes some more work that goes into these off market deals as well.
Yeah, and I definitely again appreciated that you would often kind of, well, not exactly go out of your way, because this is what the retainer covers, but yeah, you helped with all of the data gathering and jumping on calls with sellers to find stuff out, which made it a lot easier for me in my while I'm getting on with my day-to-day work. Yeah, so switching gears slightly, because we can find online and offline businesses, and I think usually people specialize in one or the other. Have you seen any difference in strategy for finding one type of business over the other? What enables your systems to kind of work for everything?
Yeah, sure. Like online being digital and offline being like physical world business. Yeah, so we do a few things. Like in the offline world, our biggest friend is Google Maps, and we built some tech in-house through the years that kind of lets us search Google Maps at scale. That's helpful, and we use like analysts to kind of run that. But any legitimate local business, for the most part, is going to have a Google Maps profile. And so, like Don, somebody comes to us and they want to buy a service business in Utah. They want to buy an electrician or a plumber in Utah. There's a finite amount of those businesses, and 90%+ of them probably are in maps. And so we can really try to find every single one of those on the offline side. And then online, it's a little trickier as far as like comprehensive coverage, but those businesses have more of a digital footprint, so they're a lot more often going to be on industry lists or research reports, things like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's interesting. Every now and then I get like an email from PitchBook saying, "Hey, we can help you find offline businesses, just find businesses." And I'm kind of thinking, how many of the businesses that I want to buy are on PitchBook, like, or Crunchbase? Like, they're not there. So, kind of got to use other methods to find them. Um, so yeah, and then how, again, without necessarily giving away trade secrets, but how does the initial approach look? Because again, what I found interesting, so I've worked with different like proprietary search firms before. There's a few others out there. Um, they're all generally good. But I think again, what surprised me when I used you guys for the first time was, um, well, I don't actually know what your hit rate is, but maybe you just do way more volume than others. But the amount of high quality leads you showed me within a very short time, it was almost like you had them lying around already. Um, so maybe the results improved because now that Onfolio is public, we could get more positive responses, but it didn't seem that way. So I know there are other companies out there that will kind of spam the internet, basically. Let's say somebody wants to buy um, an online agency, or they want to buy a content website, or they want to buy an FBA business. A lot of the firms that help people find that, they'll just basically send a kind of generic email like, "Hey, everybody, I'm working with a buyer who," and usually it's kind of like a lie, like they've identified your business as one that they really want to buy. Are you interested? And anyone who runs an online business has probably received some of these emails, and I find that they don't really work because they don't come across particularly genuine. And for someone like me who runs many online businesses, when I receive the exact same email to 5 of my different companies, it's very obvious that they're basically just spamming the internet. Um, and you may say, yeah, I do the same thing, but I kind of get the impression that yours is a little bit uh, more successful in terms of response rate. And so I'm kind of curious what approach you take that maybe is different from just making things a numbers game.
Yeah, definitely. So the volume is important. Like we do try to do volume when we run a campaign. Another piece of it, we're very, I would say, like obsessive even about like the email deliverability. And there's, I don't need to get into that here, but there's a lot of stuff online about that. But like domain reputation and list quality, all these things. So that really matters. Like making sure your emails are actually landing in inboxes and they're not getting flagged as spam. Because that'll kill a campaign straight away. But yeah, like on the messaging side, yeah, it's funny you call that out because that's I've seen that, like especially in past places we've worked where that was kind of like one model, and that it works, but it's like any trick that you try to pull, it's always there's a cost to it, right? Like there's if you start that interaction kind of in bad faith, like you're playing against yourself, really. And so a couple things that we like, I do think in your case, there was definitely credibility that came from, like in our outreach, we would say, we're working with a NASDAQ listed company that's looking to acquire businesses in XYZ. And I do think that, that NASDAQ, that public company, did offer credibility and got people excited. But there's other ways to do that as well. And I think so in cold email, just generally, like whether you're selling widgets or you're trying to buy companies. Like there's this vector axis between like personalization and scale. So I can send 2 or 5 really good emails an hour, handcrafted, and if I manually type those out myself, and research them, or I could send 10,000 an hour that don't have any personalization, and somewhere in the middle towards a little more personal, that is kind of the sweet spot. But even beyond that, just being like very specific. So it doesn't necessarily need to be personalized, and we don't need to say, hey, like we saw on LinkedIn that you went to school here, and my cousin did too, but like we can say we're looking for businesses that fit this very specific set of criteria. You get more people disqualify early on, but that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's funny. While speaking, I opened up my spam folder while you were speaking, and I literally I don't know, in the last couple of hours, I got that exact like generic email, and it's from a company I know. Like I know them, so you can tell it's not targeted at all. And it's like, hi, do you have any plans to sell Onfolio Holdings Inc? And then in parentheses NASDAQ. And
yeah, every day on the NASDAQ.
That's whenever I get outreached where it's like, I'm really interested in Onfolio Holdings Inc. NASDAQ, I know that they've just scraped something from LinkedIn, because anyone who knows me will call us Onfolio. But if they're like Onfolio Inc. NASDAQ, then they've pulled that from LinkedIn. And I think yesterday or the day before, there was someone who was like, hey, I'm looking to buy a single business with this revenue and located in New Jersey, and blah blah blah. And it's like, and he's like, based on my research, I can see you're a perfect fit. And he had like 5 bullet points, and we didn't fit any of the bullet points. So I was just like, well, I'm not going to reply. I mean, I wouldn't have replied anyway because I'm not looking to sell. But yeah, I think there's a sweet spot between being genuine but also being able to scale. So I think the problem is, when people are like, I can see you fit this criteria, and straight away you don't trust them because you know that they don't even know who you are. Whereas if you're more like, hey, we're looking for businesses that fit this criteria, we think you might fit it, are you interested? It achieves the same amount of scale, I think, but the person on the other end is like, okay, yeah, they're probably emailing lots of companies, but at least they're not like trying to lie. Like I don't know who it was, someone must have sold some course recently about how to do cold email because they're so much more prolific over the last 6 months. But I always get these emails from people saying, hey, I helped a SaaS company in Wilmington, Delaware, just like you guys, scale, and I'm looking to work with another SaaS company in Wilmington, Delaware. Can I stop by your office tomorrow or something? And I'm like, anyone who knows us knows we're not actually in Wilmington, Delaware. That's just where our company's registered. And so, whereas if that person had said, hey, I work with companies to do X, Y, Z thing, I might respond. And so I think, the danger is when it's almost like you're trying to fake making something a better fit and it backfires. So that's my, my experience with that kind of thing. But yeah, I guess sort of that's me.
No, it's everywhere. It's like the AI content. It's like when you read an article and ChatGPT wrote it, it's a lot less interesting than if you think a real person wrote it. I think people and business owners are pitched all the time, all different sorts of things, and so I think they have a very high filter for it's a real outreach, or is this somebody trying to sell me something or scam me or whatever it might be?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So have there been any instances where you've kind of had to adapt your approach to meet someone's unique requirements? Like maybe your normal approach didn't work for whatever reason.
Um, yeah, definitely. Like even in your case with, I think when we started, we were focused more on agencies, and then we kind of switched along the way to, we did an exercise into the WordPress space.
Yeah.
And that was different, right? Because with the agencies, we were using Google Maps a lot, and we were kind of looking at different lists. Whereas on the WordPress, it was trickier to find those. What we did there was we actually wound up building a scraper, and kind of getting into the WordPress directory, and worked pretty well. There was some, WordPress doesn't want to have their directory scraped, so it was a little bit tricky. But we still uncovered some stuff there that I think was a little bit off the beat.
Yeah, those WordPress plugins are wild. Like there's some that are doing $5,000 a year, and then there's others that are doing like $5 million a month. It was tough for us because when we're buying agencies and we want something in that 1 to 5 million range, there's dozens and dozens of them. But WordPress plugins, we were like, we want something in 1 to 5 million, and there was basically like 2 plugins in that range. So that was kind of interesting. So in terms of timing, how long on average does it take to find, let's say a client starts working with us today and they say, okay, here's my requirements, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, yeah, we can totally do that. The answer is probably going to depend heavily on what they're looking for. But, how long on average does it sort of take to start showing qualified leads to people?
Yeah, so from like day zero on board, like you said, it does depend. We try to move quickly, figure a week to 2 weeks of kind of ramp period as far as building that initial list, working out the email outreach script, actually getting those emailed out, scheduling calls, having calls. It's going to take 2 to 3 weeks probably realistically. But our goal is to be showing deals month one. Within 4 weeks we want to be showing deals, and then month 2 that'll be kind of fully ramped. Multiple new deals weekly, really for the duration of the engagement there, and then depending on a market, like you do exhaust the 80-20 thing, right? Like if you're looking at, again, something for somebody that wants to buy a car wash in Salt Lake City, like maybe there's 200 of them. I'm not sure how many there are, but at some point we're going to run out of the ones that are easy to find. And then we'll spend some time finding that long tail. And at some point that not really a worthwhile exercise anymore. You found the majority of the ones that can be found.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that totally makes sense. I think with us, you found something. I feel like it was 7 days or something. You found some good ones, and then, the process was quite quick because it would be like, hey, here's a business, here's the high level. Are you interested to learn more? And sometimes it wasn't that appealing, but a lot of the time it was, because you already had found out from us, like, what kind of price do you pay? What kind of size are you looking for? Do you want the owner to stay? You already had found these types of things. So I would say, yeah, like, love to learn more. And then you'd send an NDA template over, and from there, then there was a bit of an unknown, because some people would be like, great, here's my financials. And others, I think some of them we're still following up. Like some of them just never, they're like, oh, I don't want to actually share my financials with you, or their financials are kind of a mess. So the next step can just depend on really how quickly stuff can happen. But we would normally get like a kind of phone call scheduled that week. So yeah, I think we first started, I was on like 3 or 4 calls a week with you and potential business owners, and it was it was exhausting, but it was great, like how many results we were getting. And yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm giving people unrealistic expectations now, because everybody's results are going to be different. But yeah, it was exciting for me. So yeah, do you think there are specific industries or sectors where you see more opportunities for acquisitions? Like, I do think most people who come to us have something in mind, but there's going to be some other people who are a little bit more agnostic, like we are. Where do you think a search can produce more results, or the opposite, like fewer results?
Yeah. I think a lot of it really comes down to the buyer, like what they are looking for, what their experience is. I think that's really like the biggest factor. And then from there, you kind of can look at it at both ways, like as far as the more narrow you focus, the less possible, like the less total number of businesses there are. But having that hyper focus sometimes makes it actually, in some ways, easier to actually close a deal.
Yeah, and I think you'll probably get a higher response rate as well, because it's a lot more targeted and a lot more, they're almost guaranteed to fit the criteria. So,
no, broadly, I think though, like there's a lot of opportunities depending on what people are looking.
Yeah, definitely, as we've seen leads come in for Dealpipe for potential clients, and some of them I would be like, we can't find this person a business, right? This is far too niche. And you'd be like, no, we totally can. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool. This is awesome. All right. So, I think we can wrap up a bit here, but putting you on the spot slightly, is there any, if I'm a buyer and I want to work with Dealpipe, what do you think increases my chances of like a successful search? Yeah, what do you think buyers should know in advance?
Yeah, a few things. I think one would be having a good idea of what you want, and like that doesn't necessarily like that. You're gonna uncover things that you search. You're gonna get a better idea what you want in search, but to know, at a broad level, what's important to you in a business that you want to buy, to have a good solid understanding of that helps. I think beyond that, like to know that you really want to buy a business, like to be committed to it, because it's an undertaking. There's a lot of ups and downs throughout the process. Like everybody's excited about it, but it's a long process, and there's a lot of risk and variability and all the uncertainty, like all sorts of things. And if you're, to that kind of counter that point I just said about knowing what you want, like it built people in the past and, at all levels, like very sophisticated investors even, that kind of have this like ideal standard for what exactly they want to buy, and just turn down deals. And you do have to be very prudent about what you buy, but there's no perfect business. Like businesses are collections of people, and there's always skeletons in the closet, like at any business. And so I think like realistic expectations and like a real commitment to the process are important.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good points there. I think knowing what's important to you matters as well, like beyond just the financials. Like I think for us with agencies, we really want the founder to have been replaced already or be willing to stay on or something like that. But yeah, there's definitely people out there. When Onfolio first started, we worked with people to help them find a business, and there's people out there who maybe think they want to buy a business, but they really don't. Or they're looking for something that's like 99 out of 100 on their criteria score, when I think most businesses are going to be like 75. You definitely don't want to buy something that's a D minus, but probably a B plus is gonna be where most businesses are. So just kind of knowing what kind of what is like, I don't want to say good enough because that sounds like you're kind of settling, but yeah, like, if you want to buy a business, understanding that it's probably not going to be like 99 out of 100, is probably going to be in the 75% range, is key, and making sure you're protected, on the downside. So rather than chasing the perfect business, you want to be avoiding a lemon. Because then the economics are good. So as long as you don't mess it up, then you're going to be rewarded. I think is important. But yeah, anyway, so thanks for taking the time to walk through that. And if anybody's interested in Dealpipe, you just go to dealpipe.io, and we have a contact form there. You can reach us, and I think it's pretty exciting. I think we can find some great businesses for people, and set people off on the right foot as well. So it's not just a commoditized process, but it's thoroughly rewarding process. So yeah,